Okay, well, welcome to the first in-person episode of Cult Stuff and Chill. After 15 weeks, we've made it.
This is a special 15-week episode.
Yeah, very special 15-week episode. And because we were hanging out in person, we made the executive decision not to do our standard episode format. So instead of like 2 stories, we're going to do just like a general ghost story time. Because Ashley has a lot of them. I don't so much, but she's got a lot of interesting ghost stories. So we're just going to we're going to gab. Girls who gossip.
It'll be like a fun sleepover, like when you tell ghost stories or
this
scary.
This is the first, there we go, the first annual Cult Kid sleepover. And I don't know
Except for it's the middle of the morning.
Well.
And I'm wearing pajamas though. So.
There we go. You're wearing comfy pants like pajamas. We're taking synchronized sips of drinks. We're ready to go. We do also have, we've been trying to get this, it's a K2 meter for those that are listening and not watching. We were going to set it up in the background, but for some reason,
it hates Devan.
It hates me. Like, oh, well, I think I'm possessed. But,
better there's a ghost in my house.
Yeah. Either are very valid options. But anyway, we'll play with this later. We'll have some additional content for you guys on our Instagram and on our YouTube. So stay tuned for that. But K2 Meter will be featured heavily, I'm sure, later. I'm going to try to find myself a haunted doll today. We'll see how that happens. Yeah. But we do also have listener ghost stories.
Yeah.
Let's start here. I believe this is your cousin, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read this one?
No, you can read it.
Okay. Well, Kristen says, we were camping once, only one other tent with a single guy nearby. I went to the bathroom on my own and swear to God, midstream, I hear a little girl humming. I look under the stall and don't see any feet, and I got back to the tent as fast as I could. Not as interesting as some of Ashlee's experiences, but terrifying anyway.
That could have been a ghost or it could have been not deer.
Ooh, okay, yeah, that's like, wasn't aware of what a not a deer was until very recently, like post Skinwalker episode, and for some reason, I reference TikTok too many times in our podcast, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because I'm just heavily invested in TikTok, but I'm on that side, I think due partially to you because you always send me these videos of like weird cryptids, and the not a deer has come up too many times. And I'm also a little bit nervous because later today we are going out to, like, in the twilight nighttime hours, her parents' farm where
there may be a not a deer there. So.
Or not a deer, but a demon.
Yeah.
One or the other or both. We don't know.
Probably all of the above. I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, because my parents' house is actually built on, I think it's built on, like, it's not like Native American land where they used to, like, live. I think it's like their old hunting grounds because we found a lot of like
arrowheads,
and then animal parts, so like teeth, like big teeth to like wolves, not just like little dog teeth, but like, you know, substantially large teeth, not like any other artifacts though, so we know that it wasn't like where they were camping, but it did used to be wooded. So
yikes.
Yep.
So the possibility for a skinwalker is high. Or a Wendigo. I guess we're more in Wendigo territory here, I think, in the Midwest.
Or something else that, you know, modern culture or modern media hasn't latched on to.
Aliens.
To be honest, sometimes I think there's aliens out there. Because we live right next to, well, not we, they live next to an airport. And there's been a few times where there's been, like, weird lights coming off of it. And I'm just like,
that's not a commercial aircraft.
Mm-mm.
Definitely not.
That big green streak through the sky? No.
Oh, God. I can't wait for the day. I literally had this conversation with my coworkers at one point, and this is like before they really knew me on a personal level, but we were talking about aliens, and this was like before June when there was like all that talk about, you know, they're going to release the UFO files or whatever. And I literally said, if a news article comes out that hard stop like verifies the existence of aliens, I'm going to stand up, flip my desk, and go, haha, I fucking told you so. To every single one of you. And they were just looking at like, okay. So, they all probably think I'm really fucking weird. And then also, more recently, it takes me a while to get comfortable in a workplace, right? So I'm coming up on my 1 year at my current job. And recently I was talking to them about plans for my birthday weekend. We are actually going to go stay at a haunted hotel. And I was like, oh, well, we're going to go to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And they're like, what's there? I'm like, oh, it's the most haunted hotel in America. And they're like, and you're doing what? And I'm like, we're staying in the most haunted hotel in America. They're like, that doesn't sound fun. You don't sound fun, Becky. Just kidding. Again, if my coworkers are listening, I do genuinely like you all. But you're not on the haunted hotel bandwagon, which is something I'm going to take a little bit personally.
I feel like I tell people at my boss and one of my really good work friends who knows about the podcast. I don't know if she listens, but usually when I tell my boss, she's such like a suburban mom that she's just like, oh, that's fun. Like she can't be critical or anything. She's just like, oh, okay.
Kind of the very energy, like, that's nice, sweetie. Like, yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, we're going to go and we're going to look for ghosts and we're going to do this. And she's like,
It's like, oh, wow. Now, I will say we had a new girl start this week, and I haven't totally sussed it out yet, but I think she's a true crime person.
Yes.
We don't, I haven't spent enough time with her to, fully suss it out, but I think she might be. So I'm going to, I think, just start wearing, my MFM merch and stuff to work just casually to see if she, if she catches the vibe.
Do you want to form an alliance?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to form an alliance with me?
All right. You want to get into one of my ghost stories?
Yes, please. I feel like this is going to be mostly an Ashlee tells me stories and I get to just sit back and soak it in and really enjoy it.
Okay, so going into ghost stories, my personal ghost stories. So I have a lot. I have grown up in 2 very haunted houses, and I don't know that I would believe in ghosts if it weren't for this fact. I feel like I'm very much a skeptic, and I'm going to try to either figure out if it's something else first. You know how Ghost Hunters is, where they're we want to figure out, oh, this is a problem with your tap. It's not that ghosts are turning it on. It's that it's broken. Believe us, we used to be plumbers.
I forgot about that. It's very much the opposite vibe of Zach Baggins, who is going to blame everything on being ghostly.
He turned a fan on. He's like, did a ghost just kiss my butt?
He wishes.
So, but there's also things I feel like I haven't been able to explain. When I was a kid, the first house that we lived in. Now, my family has owned this house for a really long time. And the house that they lived in before this, they're like, oh yeah, that house was way worse. But this house was also pretty bad because in this house, before my family had bought it, there was a guy who was assaulting his daughters in it, which is just bad. And they were also, I think he either died in the house or he killed himself in the house. And I think they were also summoning ghosts because it was I think it was the 70s maybe. And this isn't really my story. This is just a history of the house. But there was occasions where, especially in the attic has always been a problem. And it's a finished attic. You would think, people could live up there. But anytime anybody has tried to live up there, it's been just a bad time. They turn into really miserable people. One kid jumped out of, it's 4 stories up too. Cause it's an old kind of skinny, tall house. One kid jumped out of the window cause he was on drugs, but also he was just jumped out of the window.
Yeah.
He lived. He was fine, mainly because of the drugs. But
oh god, he had that meth head invincibility.
Yeah, he did too. He was also naked, I guess, and was just fell onto concrete and just got up and ran from the cops.
I was just gonna say, it's they say drunk drivers typically come out of accidents without injury because they just don't have control over their muscles, so they're just a fucking rag doll in the car. I feel that's very much the same vibe.
Yeah. When my mom lived up there when she was younger, I guess she was just not really nice during that time. It was just a weird time, from what I've heard, is a weird time for everybody that was living in the attic. There are also times where, and these are just kind of piecemealed together, where there's something weird with the windows, is that At one point, one of the kids, who was like 2 at the time, and these are like, it's an old house. The windows were like painted shut with like fucking lead paint. So it's like you can't really just open them and like, you know, kids can get out. There was one time, she was like 2. She managed to somehow get the window open, was like hanging out the window, and the neighbors called, and one of your babies was like hanging out the window.
Oh no.
Nobody knows how the window opened, and then they like shut it and they couldn't get it open again. It was locked. It's painted over, and it was just like yanked open, and the baby was just like hanging out the window. And then there was another time where my mom, and she was fairly young, she was a kid at this point still, she went up to the attic where she was sleeping, and the windows were open, and I think it was like, it was cold or it was raining, or, you know, she's like, oh, I gotta go shut these windows. She went to go try to shut the windows, and it like slammed on her hands. Yeah, they were heavy windows, but like there's no reason they should have been open anyways. And it like slammed on her hands, and she couldn't get it open because both her hands, and she sat, and she was like, I was screaming for probably over an hour, maybe. And I don't know if it's the way they're built or if it's more of like a supernatural thing, but she's like, yeah, I just sat there and was screaming until somebody finally like could get my hands out of the window.
Oh, and again, how old was she about?
I want to say she was like preteen, so like probably 12 or 13. And this is one that they told me a really long time ago, but then I asked them about that recently, and they were like, oh yeah, that never happened. I was like, but you've told this multiple times. That I don't know, but it was like they were doing like playing around, like doing a seance or something in the attic, and then like paper started like swirling in like a vortex, and they like...
You do not fuck with Ouija boards, especially in the place where you live.
No.
Well, I guess I'm assuming that they had a Ouija board. They likely maybe did not. But
I think they might, because it changes, but I've heard it from multiple people who were there. Because it was like my mom and her cousins lived in the house because it's such a big house and it's like an old house. And so they're like, yeah, we'll just live here together for a while. That was actually after they had lived at the other house, which was way scarier, I guess. So that she's like, no, I'll just move in with our other aunt and uncle. But I have just like a lot of being there and just like the feeling of being watched while I was there, and also like really terrible nightmares while I was there. I think I probably slept with my mom in her bed until I was like 10 or 11 because I was like just scared to sleep on my own. And like my dad worked third shift, so he was never home. But
because it sounds like basically your mom in particular, and then like obviously yourself has moved from like house to house to house. It's just been haunted.
Yeah.
Do you think it could also be the possibility that there's like something attached to your family and not necessarily the houses that you're living in?
I think there's certain, because I feel like there's more than one spirit. I feel like there's certain ones that are attached to us, specifically my mom, because when you go out to their house now, especially when my mom is there, there's like definitely you can feel something. And I don't know if it's like her spirit guide or what, but it doesn't feel bad, but it doesn't feel like, I don't know, it feels like very neutral.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just doesn't like me. I don't know. With that house, it was like the place where the guy who was not a great guy would do his bad deeds was in the basement where they had like a bathroom under the stairs.
Yeah.
And so like anytime you would go down into the basement, you would just feel like someone was watching you from that corner. And also like you would hear stuff in there sometimes, not like loud or, you know, talking, but just like almost like something was just like crawling around, and it was just like really gross. And it was like a finished basement, finished attic. Like you'd be like, oh yeah, this is fairly nice. And no, it was just like not a vibe.
No, boy, no.
So that's my first ghost story of our first house. I can't even detail it all out because I had a lot of dreams about demons while we lived there. And I was like 3 or 4. And I'm like, this is a dream. I'm dreaming about a demon.
Yeah, too young to like have a concept of fucking demons for sure.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I guess like I had a pretty tame childhood, so maybe.
Yeah. And I think that's where the hurt started. Having talked with my sisters and stuff, I know that my one sister, she has had dreams similar to that, where she's like, especially when she lives in a haunted dorm at her school. It's like very haunted. Like it's one of the most haunted colleges in the US. And she's like, yeah, I've been having a lot of dreams about demons lately. I think I need to like change my room because.
Yeah.
So.
Gross. I hate that.
There's also like while we lived there, we did a lot of astral projecting. You'd wake up and you'd see yourself in the bed below you and like having sleep paralysis. It was mainly like at night when stuff would happen. But then there's a lot of times also where you just hear like a huge bang and would not be able to locate it anywhere. And it's not like this is like a farmhouse or anything. It was in the middle of a city. A large house, but not... And an old house. But I think it was turn of the century.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean... You don't get, like, the house in the woods spookiness from it?
No. Like, literally, you're on, like, you're next to a McDonald's.
Why does that make it even scarier to me? Haunted Big Macs.
Well, and it's crazy because it was, like, next to a McDonald's, but then down the road was, like, it used to be a hotel, now it's an old folks' home, but it was, like, a giant castle hotel that was, like, fancy.
Yeah. Luckily, for me, like, okay, I never had any experiences, like, of demons, thank fuck, or like entities. But my parents' house is also, and I have a feeling a lot of the creepiness of their house is just down to the fact that it's like over 100 years old at this point, and it is on a farm, so it's like very dark. Mm-hmm. But I remember specifically the way that the upstairs is laid out in the house, where my bedroom was, you had to, you know, go down a little bit of a hallway, and then you had to pass the stairs before you could get to the bathroom. So on your way to the bathroom, you had to, like, look down the stairwell, basically, into the pitch black. And I remember, like, always being like, there is something down there, and it's going to get me. And still to this day, like, I get the vibe that there's just, like...
Someone watching.
And so what I'll do is I'll turn the light on in that bedroom if we're staying, which pisses my husband off. Sorry, but I'm not going to get murdered by demons in my fucking parents' house. And then I'll literally run to the bathroom, do my business, and then I will, like, do this and run back because, like, I cannot look down those stairs. I can't do it. It's too creepy.
Well, wasn't that house originally built by your family, though?
So I think so. If it wasn't, like, the original structure built, like, it has been rebuilt and, like, from a smaller state, like, portions of it have been built on from my family, but they've lived there literally since, like, the 20s or 30s, so if not the original structure, like, very close to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been there a long, long time. So I think, realistically, if there is anything haunting that house, it's probably my grandpa, because he spent literally his entire life up till, like, the last 10 years of it in that house. So, and my daddy's ghost someday is also going to haunt that house, because he's literally grown up there since a child, so if there was ever a place for him to haunt, it'll be there.
Okay, but that's an interesting concept of, like, having generational homes and stuff, and, like, it's almost like you have that built-in protector from, like, other spirits, because, like, they're going to be, you know, obviously they're going to have a stronger claim to it, so that shit can't just, like, set up shop and be like, this is my house now.
Although, okay, so there is one place where the vibes are very bad in that house. So, did I show you the basement when you were there that one time?
Yeah.
So, if you go down in the basement, it is an unfinished basement. It's very much an old farmhouse, so it's like a cellar, basically. And, you know, back in turn of the century, a lot of time in the cellar, you'd have, like, a canning room or a jarring room in the basement because it stayed cooler. Well, in our basement, it so happens that that is, like, in the very back of the basement cellar, but it's like a red door. A very ominous looking red door. And if I can, next time I'm home or next time I have a sibling home, I'll have them take a picture, because it is very creepy looking. I refuse to go in the basement, even, like, when there was tornadoes. I'm like, I would rather take my chances and be leveled with this home than spend any time in that basement. But it's like whatever is behind that red door, and I've never opened it. I don't know that anyone that lives there currently has opened it, but I don't know what's back there, and I don't want to find out.
My parents' basement currently has a very similar vibe, where it's like, there's multiple rooms, and it's just like, it's built with, like, river rocks, so it's, like, not a regular foundation. It looks like a literal dungeon.
Yeah, and you, like, easily have snakes and things come in.
God.
Yeah.
They also, like, when it rains, which is kind of nice because then they don't have to worry about it. Obviously, it's not finished. It's never going to be finished. But, like, when it rains, water just, like, runs through it. And you can see in the concrete, like, a track where, like, the water usually runs and then goes into the sub pump pit.
Yeah.
It's not really a sub pump. It's a pit in the floor.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, a cellar entrance. Well, and it's also, like, especially in the U.S., like, you don't know what land had natives on it. And so it's,
all
like...
of it, realistically.
Yeah. Whether it was, like, they were using it... Because I know close to my parents' house, there's actually, like, a reservation. It's really, like, a park kind of situation. Yeah. Nobody lives there.
Well, where are those mounds at, too? Aren't those, like, burial mounds close by?
So we have some that are close by. They're not, like... they were recently discovered, and they're not really advertised. Like, you can go visit them. They're like literally someone's cornfield. But the reason that we know that they're kind of nearby, I think you're talking about like the Cahokia Mound.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's fairly close. But there's burial mounds that are like near where our dump is, and they were going to, the dump was going to buy that land to put the dump on.
No.
Actually, this is a fun ghost story. So there's a church and a guy and like a small graveyard. It's an old country church, you know, it has like 12 pews. It's tiny. But the guy that lives there and is like the groundskeeper, and he might be the pastor at the church too. I don't know that anybody goes to it like as a church, but he was telling them like, you can't sell this land because Native Americans come and talk to me at night and tell me like, this is where we're buried. And so everybody's like, this guy's just fucking crazy. Like, he's just weird. And then they actually went and did a survey and found out there's actually like a burial mound there. So, which is kind of nice because like, you know.
I mean, I'm glad they found it before they decided, let's just put all our fucking garbage on top of it. Which also, the news this week has been pretty heavy because they're finding, like, we obviously, with the residential schools in North America, like, we had to have known it was coming, that they were going to find all of this shit where they just buried a bunch of kids. So I'm sure, I'm glad that they're finding them, and I'm glad that they didn't put a dump on them before that we were able to. Very sad, but I mean, at least eventually they were found, so hopefully that's like some small sense of, I guess, peace to that community, which, well, I don't know how
peaceful that is.
Yeah.
But also, like, the Catholic Church has a lot of instances of doing that where because they're all Catholic schools, right? Where they, like, just kill children and dump them in a, like, there's places in Ireland
that
the same thing.
Not even Native American, it's just, like, Catholics in general have a bad habit of, like,
making you have all these kids and then killing the ones they don't like.
Yep. God, so, fuck the Catholic Church. Basically. Could I actually have a couple more fuck yous that I meant to issue at the top of the episode? May I? May I indulge myself? Okay, first one. Bill Cosby, fuck you.
Yeah.
Big fuck you to Bill Cosby. And also, fuck you to the prosecutors that fucked that up so royally. Also, I need to issue a massive fuck you to the Spears family. Sans Brittany, obviously we stan. But Jamie, you're a snake. Both male and female Jamie snakes. So fuck you to the Spears family. God, I have another person I wanted to fuck you as well, but for right now, it's Bill Cosby, his prosecutors. Oh, and then fuck the judge in Brittany's case who was like, no, we're going to keep this conservatorship intact, even though, in my opinion, the audio of her, she sounds pretty fucking lucid as to what she wants to do with her body and her life. Like, I don't understand the logic here.
Also, it's a huge, like, disability rights issue because it's like the whole reason that they have conservatorships is for people who literally cannot take care of themselves. And it's not like this person is quirky and is like not, doesn't have necessarily a high functioning mental illness. It's like, it's for people that literally cannot care for themselves and to like be like, oh no, because we view mental illness as like bad and that it can't be helped, or like, someone can't take care of their own mental illness, we're just going to pop you in a conservatorship. Like, that's so fucked up. It's like, I have ADHD and like, you're going to say that I can't be allowed to function on my own because I don't know.
Speaking of ADHD and people that probably could benefit maybe from having someone tell them what to do, Gabby Hanna, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck Gabby Hanna.
Fuck Gabby Hanna. And while we're talking about YouTubers, fuck James Charles, who recently deleted his video in which he took any culpability for texting nudes to and from minors, but he then uploaded a video that was like, I should be allowed to date and find a significant other, and
that's not what it's about. It's about fucking texting children.
He like basically rescinded any sort of responsibility that he ever like copped to in the first place, and then makes this video where he's like talking about, I should be able to do this and date people and find, who I'm meant to be with, as he's doing his makeup. Like, dude, read the room, first of all. So, okay, that adds 2 more fuck yous to my list, and Gabby and James. So, fuck you and fuck you.
Gabby Hanna is just...
She's a nightmare, really, truly. I don't know her on a personal level, obviously, but she just needs someone to be like, girl, we're taking the internet away for a while.
So, Hasanami, who's a Twitch streamer, has been watching a lot of true crime, and like that's been a discussion on his channel about like people who are narcissists like that. She's obviously a narcissist,
Mm-hmm.
like there's no denying it. Even though she accused everybody else of being an abuser and narcissist, it's deflection on her part and projection. But on Hasanami's channel, they're talking about true crime and like narcissists and how sometimes the only answer for narcissists like that when they're like getting to that stage, and obviously they're talking more about murderers, is like just to put them in jail. Like there's no, they don't care. They just don't care about other people. And she clearly does not care about other people.
Her and James both.
Yeah. It's fucking garbage.
I don't know what made me think of that, but I was like, you know what? I really fucking hate these people, and I just need to make it known right now, right here. Should I get into another listener story here?
Yeah.
so we can get back on the ghost story track.
Derailed.
It's
like, it's like if you were at a sleepover with us.
Yeah, this is exactly what it would be like. It's just very disjointed. Like, we started talking about something, and then 8 years later, you're like, wait, what?
What happened to the original plot of the movie?
It's gone, but it's coming back. That was like the subplot in the middle of the movie that nobody quite understands. But we're back now.
It's like a bad movie. We're not claiming to be great filmmakers.
By a stretch, no. We do have another listener tale for you guys. Spooky stories. This one comes from my good buddy Caitlin. And this is one she's told me in person. She did also send it to us, and her husband has corroborated this, which is pretty sick. So I'll just start by reading. Now, let me just make it known that I, not formally diagnosed with ADHD or anything, but in reading large walls of text, I will probably stutter a lot. I will probably lose my place and have to come back to it. I digress. Anyway, so, set the mood. Many years ago, when my hubs was still living in North Carolina, I went to visit him for the weekend. So they live in Virginia now, and that's where she was from. So she goes, I was sleeping in the den, and it was the middle of the night, and I suddenly woke up to a pitch black room, but I could still make out that there appeared to be what looked like an old man in the corner just staring at me. I quickly got up and quietly went into the room where John was sleeping and asked him to come into the den and just sit there with me until I fell asleep. I explained to him what I saw and asked him not to tell his parents because I didn't want them to think I was crazy. Fair point. You don't want to make that impression on the in-laws the first time around. That's not the foot you want to start off on. But anyway, the next morning we were all in the den watching something on TV and drinking coffee, and looked up at their mantle and realized the old man I saw was in a picture. Turns out it was John's grandpa, who had died about 3 years before him and I met. I quietly told John about this, and of course, what does he do? He tells his parents that I saw his dead grandpa. His parents were sweet and just said that Grandpa was just checking me out to make sure I was good enough for his grandson. Clearly, Grandpa Joe approved because John and I have been together for almost 13 years. She does have a second story as well. So, she goes, I have the unfortunate pleasure of dealing with sleep paralysis and see many crazy things in the middle of the night. It definitely doesn't help with my anxiety and depression. I have seen huge spiders crawling on my ceiling or on my bedside lamp, or just dark masses on my ceiling, which, fuck that. But the worst thing I've ever seen to date were black-eyed kids in my closet, which, if you guys aren't aware what black-eyed kids are, do a quick Google. Maybe we'll come to it at some point, but I don't like them. They're creepy. Just imagine, children, small, Victorian children ghosts with black eyes, and they're just, asking you to use their phone, and they are just fucking terrible. Anyways.
Yeah.
So it was about 3 a.m. when this happened. I don't know what caused me to wake up, but when I did, I definitely saw a little boy and girl with black eye holes standing in my closet. I screamed so loud, and my poor John didn't know what to do. Needless to say, I didn't go back to bed that night because I was too afraid those damn kids would show up in my closet again. Yep, so that's Caitlin's story. She's got some good ghost stories, too, so I'm sure at some point I could be like, hey, regale us with more tales.
Yeah, we need a follow-up.
Yeah, I need a follow-up. Caitlin, I know you're probably listening, so if you've got any more stories, definitely send them our way, because I like to include the listener stories. That's kind of fun.
Caitlin's really, our biggest fan.
Caitlin is our biggest stan, and we love to see it. She's a very supportive friend, and I love that about her. Yeah, let's hear another Ashlee story.
Okay, so moving on from our first house, which was just like, you didn't really see apparitions. It was just more of like feelings and like weird shit happening, like physical stuff, like poltergeisty type shit. Moving into our second house, which is where my parents currently reside, that shit's haunted as fuck. Like, it is not a great place. Now, there's different ghosts. There's definitely different ghosts, and they have different, like, MOs. So there is a ghost that lives on the back porch. Well, he's not there right now because my dad is redoing the back porch and has been redoing it for like 3 years. But multiple people in our house have seen him, and he wears like a top hat. And so my sister just called him like Abraham Lincoln. But like anytime you go onto the back porch, you would just kind of be like overwhelmed with the feeling of just like feeling a lot safer. Like he's definitely there to watch over the house. He's not there to be like a bad dude.
Yeah.
And so this house is also very old. I think it was built like 1880, turn of the century, around that time. So we think that he's like the first owner of the house. Also, it's a farmhouse, but it's like weirdly built as it was built. It was very like luxurious when it was first built. Now, obviously not so much because it's over 100 fucking years old. And, you know, the people that owned it before my parents didn't necessarily take the best care of it. So, you know, they're working on it, trying to keep it up. But when it's like a sinking ship with a lot of holes in it, you gotta like, you know, kind of go as you can. But that guy, he just seems chill. And I haven't seen him, but I definitely like felt him, and like it's just like, you know, he's there. You're not necessarily scared of him. You're just like, okay, you know, he's there. He's watching over us. However, there's more ghosts. Specifically, there's one that lives in the barn, which is where I keep my horses. And maybe one, maybe more. It might not be a ghost. It might be a not deer. I don't know. Because out in the barn, what will happen is you will hear someone in the family talking to you. And like, there has been times where my mom is like, she'll text me and she'll be like, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "What?" I'll be like, "I'm at home. Like, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh." She's like, I heard you crying in the barn. And I was like, okay. Did you like go to see who it was? And she's like, no. I'm like, probably for the better.
Yeah, I'm not fucking with that. That's a very like much a skinwalker trick.
Well, and you'll hear it too with like cats. You'll hear cats like crying, like they're hurt. But like in the woods kind of behind the barn. And I'm like, I'm not dealing with this night. Like, sorry if it is a kitty. But then, like, you'll see our two cats, because we have two barn cats that are there most of the time. It's like, you'll see them. You're like, okay, it's not one of them. Not that I don't care about hurt kitties, but...
Yeah. But it's in the middle of the night, and I feel like, I think we've said this before, but barn cats, like, farm kid life is very different in that, like, barn cats, they come and they go.
Yeah.
And if you were to get up in the middle of the night, anytime you heard a cat fight and, like, try to see what was wrong, he would not get any rest ever.
Right.
So it's just fact of life.
And also where the barn is, it's like situated pretty far. It's at like the back of the property. So it's not like a cat got hit by a car or something and like got thrown into the bushes. It's like way far back. Yeah. So it's like, it's just very weird. There's also been times where I have seen like black masses out there, just like not even like shadow people, just like black masses. There have been times where like I will be like in there just fucking around doing something, you know, chores, and like it's almost like I leave my body and I like project out and I see like myself and I see like a black shadow behind me, and then I just like snap back and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Sorry, whatever else needs to be done, I'm done.
Yep, over it.
And it's always at night. It's never during the day. And it's not like this is a common occurrence for me. It's literally only like when I've been in the barn. There have been times where, specifically one time that was like really scary, where I was like, it was snowing. It wasn't icy. It was just snowing. And I had on like a really long coat that was pretty thick. And I felt something grab me by the back of my neck and like yanked me to the ground, like flat on my back. It wasn't like I slipped or fell or anything. It was like I felt something grab me. And I was just like laying on the ground, and then just heard like growling in my ear.
Oh, I hate that.
And like hearing growling in your ear is another thing that's like pretty common out there. It's like you'll just be standing there and you'll hear like, and it's like you're standing in the middle of like kind of a field area. So it's not like it's something from a tree or like a raccoon.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of raccoons. But I think whatever is there kind of got scared off because I, you know, went out and screamed at it that I was going to put it in a box if it didn't stop.
It's going to end up in a Dybbuk box in the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum in Las Vegas if it keeps acting up.
I'll fucking sell it to Zach Baggins. I'm not playing around, yo. And also I've noticed, like, the raccoons have come back, because for a long time, like, raccoons would be in the barn, but, like, they wouldn't get into stuff. Yeah. Like, they would kind of, you would see them, but, like, they wouldn't stay. And now, like, they seem much more comfortable, so I feel like it might have, knock on wood, moved on. I'm trying to think of other stuff that's happened out there. A lot of it is really just, like, the hearing someone that is from your family out there talking, and there's, like, there's nobody else there. Yeah. It's just, that's weird. Another very specific story I have is one time it was, like, late at night, and my dad was asleep. I knew he was asleep, and both of my sisters were asleep, but I was like, I had to go out and check on the horses because I think one of them was sick or something, or maybe it was just, like, really hot during the summer and I didn't feel like doing barn chores until late. And this is when I was a kid. So I was walking, and it's, again, an old house. There's nothing really fancy. Like, they don't have smart locks or anything. I went out to the barn and started doing chores. And I, like, kind of started to walk out of the barn, and all of the lights went off in the area, except for the lights in the house, which is important. So the lights on the back of the house went off. The light, there's, like, a big light over the driveway, which, like, every farmhouse has pretty much. That went out, and the ones in the barn went out. And I was like, that's fucking weird. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And so I went up to the house, and I, like, walked up to the door, ran up to the door, and I, like, went to open it, and it was locked and shut. And I was like, I know that this wasn't even shut, let alone locked. And, like, I knew everyone else was asleep. You know, it was pretty late at night. And so I, like, start jamming lock, and I knew that my mom was going to be home fairly soon because she was working late that night. She used to do, like, concessions for whatever. So I was, like, trying to get into the house. I was, like, trying to climb in windows and, like, trying to, like, basically break the door down because I was starting to get, like, super freaked out. Yeah. And then I heard, like, a little girl laughing behind me, and I just, like,
oh no.
That's when I, like, lost my shit, and I started, like, crying hysterically and started just, like, ramming into the door. And then, like, all of the lights turned back on, and my mom pulled into the driveway.
Oh my god. That's, like, off of a horror movie, truly.
Yeah. That was probably the scariest, as in, like, because it was weird. It wasn't, like, the power everywhere had gone out, because the lights in the house were still on. The lights in the barn went off, and there's no control from the house to the barn. So it's not like somebody was, like, playing a prank on me or anything. Literally, the breaker box to the barn is in the barn. And I think at that point we didn't have a garage because, like, a tree had fallen on it. So it's like we couldn't even, it's not like there is, like, a line that goes from the garage to the barn to route power out. But I think at that point that had been cut off, or, like, it was, I don't know, like, that box was sealed up until we had built a new garage. So it was just, like, it was a weird that was weird.
So I don't have a ghost story about a front porch, but that story that you told me earlier maybe it's like a ghost of shame. So, and again, I'm going to totally derail the podcast here, but when I was probably, like, early middle school, so 6th, maybe 7th grade, my parents were adding an addition onto the house to extend the kitchen, make it a little bit bigger. Well, part of what they had to do for this addition was we had, like, a sun porch that was just, like, basically a screened-in porch that was, like, falling over anyway, so we had to, like, remove that, but there was a foundation under it, so there was a foundation pit. So during the construction, my dad, his habit used to be that he would talk on the phone with his buddies at night, usually after it was dark because they were farmers and that's when they all got in, and he would go out on the sun porch and pace back and forth and talk to his buddies. Well, we're all sitting in the kitchen, like, having la-di-da moments, just eating popsicles, who the fuck knows what, and we see Dad on his phone, and he's walking towards the door that now opened into a foundation pit. There was nothing there, and we're like, is he going... what is he doing? And we all just kind of do one of those things where we're just, like, slowly, like, watching him walk by, like, surely he's not going to go out there. He opens the door while he's talking on his phone. Remind you, it is dark. You can't really see what you're walking into, and he opens the door as if he's in a cartoon, and you just see him, like, whoop, down into the foundation pit. And then you could just hear him in the bottom of the pit, like, we all waited a couple seconds to see if he was like going to make noises and to make sure he was still alive. And then when we heard him on the phone, he's like, Mark, I got to call you back. And then we all just started laughing. And your mom's like, he could be hurt. And we're like, he's alive. Like, he's okay enough to tell Mark he has to call him back. And he was okay. He didn't break any bones. He was a little bit scraped up and had a black eye for a couple weeks. But that's the story that came to mind when you were telling your front porch ghost. And I was like, well, again, it's not a real ghost, but it is maybe a ghost of shame that Jeff has following him for the rest of his life, following that story.
I really hope that that is a thing that happens, like when eventually your dad does pass away, is that's just like his ghost thing where he just like walks out and then just like falls through the floor.
Thankfully now, where that door used to be, if you were to be pacing as he used to, you'd be pacing on a nice paved brick patio area. So
yeah.
Ghost of future Jeff, if you haunt the McWhorter homestead, you're safe. You're not going to fall in the pit. Feel free to pace as you talk to your buddy Mark on the phone.
Well, and that's just like an interesting concept of like people's habits and like, is that what causes hauntings? Like,
right.
People are so like ingrained in their habit that it just leaves like an imprint on the place.
Well, especially, and I don't know if your dad's the same way, but my dad, he literally, his routine has been unchanged for the entirety of my life, essentially, well beyond my life, I'm sure, in that he gets up about the same time every day. He has a bowl of shredded wheat cereal. If he doesn't have shredded wheats, heaven forbid, like he can't eat, and it has to be a very specific kind of shredded wheat too.
Not like the generic knockoff brand. It's got to be the Wheaties or whatever.
Yeah, and he doesn't want the minis. He likes the big brick ones, I think. So he has his shredded wheat, and he goes out, does his chores, comes back in for lunch, goes out, does his chores, comes back in. Like, it's this very repetitive, that is his farm man life. And so I could really see, like, his spirit someday not realizing that he's passed and just, like, continuing on to do, like, his barn chores, and whatever family ends up in that house, like, is just like, who is pacing on my patio?
Who's fucking eating shredded wheats at my island?
Yeah, where the fuck are my shredded wheats? Where did they come from? Nobody eats these.
Nobody eats these anymore.
Yeah.
I don't feel like my dad is No, he's not. Like, he goes to work every day, but he definitely, like, I don't know. He doesn't have a routine. He just...
Yeah.
He's a man that just goes where the wind takes him when he's in the moment.
Yeah, my dad, not that way. He doesn't have shredded wheat every day. I did misspeak. I believe on Sundays he goes to what used to be the bowling alley, is now a restaurant, and gets breakfast with all the 80-year-old men that go out there.
And drinks coffee for like 6 hours.
B's and G's. Gets biscuits and gravies, yeah.
Potatoes and bacon, or just B's and G's?
Usually just B's and G's, yeah. Yeah, he's a man that loves his structure, and you know what? I can't fault him for that because he's been a very consistent man in my life. So God bless Jeff.
Yeah, consistency.
Yep.
I feel like actually, so I went to talk to a therapist about getting medication for my ADHD, and they said I had to talk to a therapist first. And so we were talking, and I was like, yeah, like I feel like I tend to have things very structured so that like I know where everything is, and I know, like, you know, this is where things stay so that I don't lose them and forget them. And she was like, well, tell me about your childhood. I was like, it was pretty unstructured, pretty chaotic. And she's like, do you feel like that's why you're like regimented now? And I'm like, yeah,
probably so.
Yeah. So yeah, my parents are definitely chaotic and like just like no concept of time. But you know, I think my dad might have undiagnosed ADHD.
Well, and especially like, I know you'd said your mom, she worked at like an event center, so her work schedule wouldn't have been such that she was like on a consistent every day, like same time, right?
Well, and he used to work third shift, and he still sometimes works third shift, so it's like, it's just not really conducive to having a regular schedule, and he works like a job where he sometimes has to stay late just because like an emergency happens, because he...
Now, does your dad, is he buy into the ghost stuff?
Not at all.
Okay, I was wondering, because it sounds more like the women in your family have this.
Yeah. So my parents at their current house are definitely the people that like, they sell the house and they're like, oh yeah, you know, it's great. It's, you house. And then, like, the next family moves into it, and it's literally a horror story. Like, this is an Ed and Lorraine Warren situation where they are just woefully ignoring what's going on in their house. And I've told them, and, like, so they were talking about going on vacation while my sisters were at school, and they're like, would you be able to stay and watch the dog and, like, spend the night and take our dog out? Also, so you can take care of the horses in the morning, because they, will throw them hay in the morning. And I was like, no, I will not sleep at your house. I'm sorry. Because when you sleep at their house, you lose time. And it's not even like, oh, I fell asleep or whatever. It's like, there was one day I was sitting on the couch, and I wasn't on my phone or anything. I was, like, watching, I think, Ridiculousness. And I just, like, blacked out. And, like, 3 hours later, it was, like, 11 o'clock at night. I was like,
what happened?
Yeah. And, like, I don't usually do that with TV. Like, I'm a very, like, short format type of person. So I was like, I have not been watching TV for 3 hours. Like, what just happened? And then that same time, because it was, like, one time I stayed to watch their dog like that while they were on vacation. And I also, like, would wake up in the middle of the night and just hear, like, it was like people had just got done talking. Like, it was, like, the last word. Or, like, I would hear people talking, and I would, like, wake up, and then it would just be like,
no,
stop.
Thank you.
Also, that house, so basically there's, like, a poltergeist or something that lives there, because something will, they have a border collie, and she's pretty smart. She throws her own toys down the stairs a lot of the time. But there's also been times where she'll be sitting at the bottom of the stairs looking up the stairs, and it's, like, a rickety ass, like, very narrow, poorly built, like, stairway up to their upper floor, because it's, like, a 2-story house with an attic and a basement. But the dog will just be looking up the stairs, and toys will just, like, come flying down the stairs, and it's like nobody else is home. And so, I mean, I guess it plays with the dog. But the dog also will freak out. Like, my mom put a crucifix over her food bowl because she was like, there's something that is, like, scaring the dog away from eating.
That's okay. I know it's scary, but it's also very cute that your mom, like, I'm going to put a crucifix over the dog feeding station.
She did too. There's two. Because my mom also collects crucifixes, and I'm like, maybe you're, maybe this is you. But yeah, they just, like, kind of willfully ignore everything that happens. Like, it has literally happened right in front of my dad where something has gone flying down the stairs. And I'm like, Dad, that just came flying down the stairs. He's like, it's just the poltergeist. And I'm like, that's not just this is just that. Like, it's frustrating.
He's just, like, going about his life like, nope, nothing is wrong with this scenario.
That's exactly it. They're like, no,
okay. Granted, I've never stayed the night at that house, but I've been out to your parents' house at one point in time, and I remember I'm like, this place, it's broad daylight, but I'm a little creeped out. And it's a nice house, too. It's not like it's, like, a house that you would go in and be like, oh, this is a bad vibe. But it's just, like, you go in there and you're like, something is off. And
it's, like, I mean, they're kind of in the middle of redoing it. Like, their bathroom, they're redoing, and it's just, like, trash. But, it's one of those take it a step at a time. It's, like, it has good bones. It has good structure. It'll make a really nice house when they're, like, done renovating it. But there's just something off about it. And I think really my speculation, because we've never done anything like this, but I think that one of the old owners, or maybe their kids did do a Ouija board or something. Another short story is that when my sister was little, my middle sister, she used to just, like, open the door of the basement and stare into the basement and just, like,
no. No. Little kids acting fucking creepy with ghosts.
She's like, I don't know why I did it. And she would just stare into the basement.
No, thank you.
And, like, you'd go by and you'd be like, what are you doing? Also, we had to put locks on the basement door because it kept opening. But that could also just be it's an old house.
Yeah.
It's not level. No part of that house is level. Do not bring a level into the house and expect it to work. Like,
it's just old farmhouses. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, because it settles, and then it's like it wasn't built level to begin with, because they're just like, we got to get this up, and if all of these measurements are fine, it should be fine. And I was talking to my dad about, like, redoing his ceiling in his living room, and he was like, I'm scared to take this down because I don't really want to know what's underneath. He's like, but I gotta, you know, re-insulate it. And like, he's like, so it's going to be, it's not just like, oh, we can just put paint on it kind of situation. It's going to be like
you need to totally re-drywall or re-stucco or whatever it is they have going on.
Well, it's, so what it is the old, I think it had like a beadboard ceiling. It's not level though. So I think and then it's drywall on top of the beadboard. Because, like, the people that owned it before them just, like, did not do a good job with their home renovations. They're just like, yeah, we don't give a shit. So they just, like, put wallpaper on top of wallpaper on top of wallpaper. There's, like, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon wallpaper in that fucking house. And also questionable choices. Like, there is a small room that you can tell used to be, like where they would just store stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe, like, if they had a maid, that's where the maid would sleep. Like, it's a very small room. And they had, like, fucking just nightmare kittens and puppies and like little lion like wallpaper with like giant eyes that were like all different colors. So it was like the wallpaper was kind of like a yellowish color, tannish at that point, and then like the animals were just like sketched, but then the eyes were all different colors, but like giant beach ball eyes, but also ominous and threatening. And it was not a vibe.
No. I'm excited to go out there with my K2 later, though. Like, I don't even want to, like, necessarily provoke anything. I kind of just want to have it on me to see, like, if anything does. Because I don't want to, like, stir up paranormal activity at your parents' house to be like, deuces, bye. Like,
no, maybe you should, because then maybe they might, like, listen. I've told them multiple times they need to get that place blessed. And then, or, like, you know, a professional needs to come out and look at it. Because our previous house, the one that was also haunted, they're like, oh, we had it blessed. So I'm like, and it was still fucking haunted. But I think the ghosts were like, I don't know, maybe they were mainly going after kids. I don't want to get too deep into that. But
didn't you say you were going to try and like submit to like Zach Baggins or something? Yeah. Okay, if by some miracle Zach Baggins is like, yes, let's go to the Franken Farms house, I need to know and I need to be present. Granted, when I watch Zach Baggins, it's hate watching, but, like, I just need to... Is he that way in person, or is that a persona? Like, I just need to meet him.
I feel like he is like that in person, though.
Like, he looks like he would just be that way, but I just need to know. I need to know.
It's like, he doesn't seem like he's a multi-dimensional character. He seems like he's just... That's who he is.
Yep. He's a frat boy that likes ghost hunting.
Which is like an odd combo, and I don't hate it, but also I kind of hate him. But also I'm like, you know what? You're out here doing the Lord's work. Because I don't know that I'd be going to like Eastern State Penitentiary and screaming at ghosts.
No. And you know what the thing is? Like, Ghost Hunters, which is the one where they used to be plumbers, the Caps crew, they're always very respectful when they come in somewhere. And a lot of the time, they don't get anything. And then you have Zach coming in, like, show your fucking self. Aaron, get the fuck in there. Sends him in and, like, stirs up the ghost, piss him off, and...
Possess Aaron!
Yeah, and then... God, just, he's a character. And then I know I reference this episode all the time, but the episode where he goes, a ghost just touched my ass, like, just will stick with me forever. It's a very classic Zach Baggins ghost hunting moment.
It really is.
All those ghost ladies are just really horny for Zach Baggins.
Although, okay, so speaking of Zach Baggins, and this will kind of lead into some stories where you actually have a story. I remember we went, so talking about Villisca, the Villisca Axe Murder House. So we actually stayed there before he stayed there, I think. And I think that you guys stayed there after he stayed there. So it was just funny to like go and talk to, there's like a guy I think that owns it, or, you know, like there's a couple people I think that maybe have the keys to it so that they can let people in that want to stay there and do like, you know, ghosts, whatever they do. And like when we were talking to him, like he was pretty open about it, and like we might do an episode on it, so I don't want to give too much away, but he was pretty open about like what the situation was in the house and why like nobody really went over and saw what was happening until the next day and everybody was dead. But he also, I distinctly remember, told us like, oh yeah, I've never felt scared in the house. Like, you know, he's like, it's very active, but it's not necessarily like scary. It's just like, if you're used to ghosts, it'll be fine. But then I remember in the Ghost Adventures episode, he's like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. I can never go in there. And it was just like, you fucking, like...
Pussy.
I think that they probably told him, like, you need to play it up for the camera. But I was like,
Come on, Zach.
Yeah. Well, it's the guy that, like, is the manager of the house.
So when I went, it was the elderly couple that owned it. So the elderly man had passed not long prior to. So it was just an elderly woman, but she had, like, a property manager, like, groundskeeper woman that came in between people to, like, maintain, which I've got a whole story on that woman who was a little bit of a mess, and I really doubt she's still employed there. But the vibe there when we went was post-Baggins era, and it was, like, not the harmless ghost vibe when we went.
Yeah, I feel like it was very, like, just an intense and heavy feeling. I
guess that's probably more of a good way to put it.
And, like, this is kind of an interesting concept because it's like, when you look at hauntings, it's like, how many hauntings are actually caused by ghosts themselves? And how many hauntings are caused by, like, people manifesting, like, oh, I want to see a ghost. Like, really, that's what I think shadow people are. It's like so many people go to a location and they're like, I want to see a ghost, I want to see a ghost. And so, like, they're basically manifesting energy in that way, where it's not necessarily, it was never a person, never will be a person.
Yeah.
So, like, that's my theory on it. I don't know that anybody else has, like, had that theory on it, but that's just kind of what I think, because you see a lot of shadow people in places that are, like, haunted tourist locations.
Right.
Whereas, like, when you're just at home fucking around, like, you might see, like, shadow masses, but it's just not really the same thing,
right?
I think.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think there's something to be said about people, like, if there's a massive amount of people putting out the same kind of energy in a certain location, that it's bound to manifest as something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like there's a lot of fear there. But also, I think that there are maybe ghosts there that are from the people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, from the people as in the people that were murdered there, right? Yeah. So I definitely think that's true. And you've heard this story before, and I might have even mentioned it briefly in the podcast. But when we stayed, mind you, my friends, like, I don't want to be like we're pretty respectful people, but I mean, like, we didn't go in there, like, to party or do anything. We were there purely just to, like, see if we could, like, see a ghost or blah, blah, blah.
To do, like, a kind of a lax ghost investigation.
Yeah. So we didn't really come with any, like, hardcore equipment or anything. We're like, we'll just stay here. We'll see if we can, like, contact them, Basically, we just wanted to go to be, like, spooked and to, like, see if we could see a ghost. Yeah, whatever. We get it. So the way this house is laid out is that there is a bedroom in the downstairs of the home in which two little girls I believe their bodies were found in the closet of this room. And so the bed in that room is situated so that your feet are a couple feet from the closet where these two girls were found. So the night goes by, we're all like, okay, let's take, like, a little bit of a nappy, sleepy situation, and then, we'll get up and either leave or we will, continue looking for ghosts. So everyone but me and one of my friends, we decided that we're going to sleep in this bed. Everyone else is in the living room. It's literally just, like, right outside the door. And throughout the night, I kept feeling what felt like little hands grabbing my feet and ankles. And I'm convinced that it's the two little girls that were in that room. And then everyone in the living room, they said that the cabinet doors were just opening and things like that. Like, while we were all awake and, like, trying to see something or find something, nothing. Like, just the vibe was weird. And then the second everyone, like, settled down for the night, I think the ghost got comfortable with us being there because we weren't, like, trying to,
like, elicit a response.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I felt like I was getting, like, touched and things. And then it was just a weird experience because everyone to this day claims that it wasn't them. And I don't know, maybe it was someone fucking with me and they're just like, I'm in it for the long con, but I don't think that's the case.
But also, like, that house is very creaky. So it's not like somebody can just, like, sneak in.
Yeah. You would definitely notice because it's all, like, plank hardwood floors too. So it is very creaky. There's not rugs down to, like, muffle sound or anything. So you would notice if someone was, especially because I was, like, awake, like, I'm like, something is touching me. So I think I would have noticed. But
so when I went, we actually did, it wasn't like a super professional investigation, but we did take some equipment. Like, we had, I think, a few K2s. We had some like, just voice recorders. We might have had dowsing rods. There's a few things that we had, but we just, it was whatever my aunt had bought, and she had done a couple of ghost investigations. So we went, and it was kind of the same situation where, like, when we were actively looking for ghosts, there wasn't really anything. You know, we did a lot of EVP stuff, individual, trying to, like, just get in touch with the kids. Definitely, like, there was no, like, people weren't fucking around at all. However, and I think they'll forgive me if I tell this story, but we were there, and it was, I think, my cousin's ex-husband had brought some, you know, like, prescription medication, and so I think everyone else in the house took one.
Oh no!
Because it wasn't anything like crazy. I think it was Valium, or it was some kind of, like, I don't know, sleep, or, you know, anti-anxiety or whatever. Maybe pain meds, but I think everyone else took one, and everyone else, like, fell asleep. And so nobody else was waking up. So I was there, and there was another girl who's one of my cousin's best friends, and she was kind of awake. I think she was trying to sleep, but I was like, I cannot be in this house any longer. Because when everybody fell asleep, that's when, like, it just became really oppressive. And, like, we were sitting in the front room, and we saw, like, shadow people walking back and forth through the kitchen. And then we didn't have the cupboards opening, but I was like, we got to go sit out, because there's, like, a barn that's, like, the, like, center where you, like, they have, like, a fridge and stuff, so you can put snacks in there, and, like, a filming room, and you can also write on the walls. And funnily enough, like, there was something on the walls that was just randomly written that, like, corresponded to everyone in the group. Like, I can't remember exactly. I think one of them was, like, my cousin's friend. It said, like, Lola the Basset Hound or something. That's, like, her dog, and it's a Basset Hound. And then, like, I had on, like, a Roman coin necklace. And there was one that was, like, Roman coin on it. And I was like, that's weird. It was like somebody had just, like, written it on the wall and, like, just left it. And so that was weird. But then we were sitting on the front of the porch waiting for everyone else to wake up. And literally I did not sleep through the night. And, like, we saw the curtains were opening and closing in the house, and it was like everyone else in there was, like, drugged asleep. Like, they were not getting up. And of course, everybody that slept were like, yeah, we had a great sleep. And I'm like, must be nice. Must be nice for you.
Well, we ended up, it was probably like 4:30 or 5. And, like, as soon as any daylight came, we're like, let's get the fuck out of here. But we had, before we left, we, like, made sure we, like, picked up the house, like, made the beds back to where they were. Like, it was very neat and tidy when we left. And the lady that had let us in, given us the keys, she's like, when you're done, put the keys in the microwave. And I'll just know that that's where they're sitting in there when I come in to clean in the morning. So we picked everything up there where we took our garbage out. Like, we made sure that it was the way it looked when we got there. And so I get a call, like, later that evening, like, after we had left, and the woman goes, not the manager lady that told us to put the keys in the microwave, but the one that owned the property. She's like, I can't believe you guys. I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I went in, everything in the kitchen was just strewn around. It was a mess. The keys were, like, you didn't lock the house, which, first of all, we didn't lock the house because the lady told us not to lock the house. That was her fault. But I was like, I don't know what to tell you, because we, like, cleaned everything. We didn't have any, she's like, there's glass bottles everywhere. I'm like, we didn't bring liquor with us. We definitely didn't. We had, like, water bottles and stuff. But like I said, we had taken the garbage out. It looked clean when we left. So either some high school kids came in at, like, 4:30 a.m., really fucked the place up and then left, or something weird happened between the time we left and whomever. I'm a little convinced, though, that it's the cleaning lady came in and fucked things up, because she had some, like, crazy stories that were very inappropriate that she was, like, telling us about, like, she went to, like, the ICP gatherings and things. So I'm like, not that that's anything wrong with that, but she was telling us some really inappropriate stories before she left us for the day. Well, we were in college at the time, but it was still, like, you would have to know someone on a personal level to be hearing the stories that she was telling it. And I think it's because my friend Emily was with us, and they very much have the same, like, not crazy person vibe like this other lady, but they had the same, like, you know what I mean, when they had the same vibe. Like, they were just, like, vibing with each other. But Emily, you could still tell Emily was like, I don't know if I should be hearing this, but the other lady just was not reading the room. But yeah, I think she probably either made shit up, or something weird happened, or some high school kids, like, came in after the fact. Yeah.
Well, but it's also, so where Villisca is, it's, like, in the middle of nowhere. So it's not like, you know, it's in a place where there's probably a lot of homeless people. It's, like, literally, like, how long did it take to, like...
It took us about 5 hours to drive
Yeah.
from my small town to the small town in which this was. And it's like a couple hundred people in this town.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Casey's General Store. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's really, the house is like on a street, but immediately behind the house, cornfields is
Right.
all it is. So it's not as if there's like an urban population that would have come in. It wasn't abnormal for us to hear just leave the keys in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So it was strange, but I do have one more listener story. So this one comes from Emily. She goes, when I was in 9th grade, I stayed at my best friend's grandparents' house out in the country with her for a weekend. Overnight, we kept hearing weird noises. Then one of the nights we decided to go downstairs and check it out because we were worried it was an animal or something. We didn't see anything, but when we were ready to go back upstairs, literally all the dishes came off one of the walls at once. We ran upstairs screaming to her grandma's room, and she said, ugh, not again. This happened every year on this weekend. So her grandma very much gives me like the same vibe as your parents, just like, ugh, okay, not again, whatever.
Yeah, I think I responded to her with that too. I was just like, that's the same exact thing that my parents do. They're just like, yeah, because like there's been times where like, not in my parents' current house, but in their old house, I think like bookcases would just like fall, like just fall over. Not like this kind of bookcase, but like a sturdy like wood.
That's like someone was trying to smash a baby.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I don't think anybody like. I think it was before my sisters were born, and I mean, I was a climber, but I did more of like bureaus, and I could I like pulled out all the drawers, so it wasn't like like I don't know. I just climbed up on the doors. I never tipped over a thing, but they would just like fall over, and you just like go and. But then there would also just be like bangs where there was just a bang.
No,
and it sounded like something fell or like somebody fell. A lot of times it's like, you know, when a body hits the floor, how it doesn't make like it kind of like hits and then you hear like different parts of the body hit. Like that would happen. Okay. Another story about this house, the old house, is that one time when I was little, I was like, I used to have, it was one of those like fold out chair things that like you could fold into like a cot, but then you fold it up into a chair. One time I was like sitting on that upside down where my head was like hanging off the back, and then I had my like legs over the back of the chair. But I was just kind of hanging out like that, and something pulled me down so that like my neck went on the floor like this and like just held me there. And I was like trying to get myself over, and I couldn't. And I started screaming for my mom. And my mom was just like, just turn yourself over. Just like flip your legs over. I was like, I literally can't move right now. Like I couldn't move. I couldn't go either way. I don't know what, but it was like, I just couldn't move. And then she's like, oh my God, like you might be paralyzed. And then she like picked me up and I was fine. I was like maybe 6 or 7 at this point. That was weird. I just remembered that. And I have a lot of like little stories like that where it's just like weird things intermittently. And you're just like, huh, that's weird.
Yeah, like at the time, you're not like, oh my gosh, this again. But then thinking back on it, you're like, there's a lot of weird shit that happened.
Yeah. Well, it was like, it's like, and I've kind of, not like recently, but like I tried to recreate it where I was like, really, like, how could I get stuck like this and not be able to get myself unstuck? And it was just like, I couldn't. And it was like really weird too, because it was like, my head was bent like all the way back. And obviously I was like a child, so I didn't have boobs at this point. But that was scary. But I do have one more, like, this is probably the best ghost story that I have. And it's also probably the quickest because it was like literally like a fleeting moment. But when I was little, we used to go down south to like North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama. We had a lot of family that lived down there, and we would just visit like Civil War battlefields and stuff because my family likes, I don't know, they like dead stuff. Like, literally, when I was little, I used to ask, are we going to go see living people today or dead people? Because we'd go to, like, visit Civil War battlefields, cemeteries, like... So, I'd be like, living people or dead? I'm like, am I going to be able to get Doritos today? Like, that's my main concern.
Priorities, really.
Yeah. Because if we're going to see dead people, we're probably going to go out to some, like, far-out cafe or something near the cemetery. Whereas if we're going to visit live people, we're going to get Subway.
Hell yeah.
So, we were, at this point, we were in South Carolina. We're down at the open air market, which is just where they've always had the open air market ever since, like, the pirate days. I say pirate days, you know, like 1700s.
Yeah. I like how that's your like way to frame that time period as, oh no, it's not the 1700s, it's the pirate time period.
Well, I mean, but it was like it was very much like a pirate town. It's always been like a, they've always had a,
like an active port.
Yeah. Well, and they've had like military down there too. Like they have what is it? I can't remember what it's called. Anyways, so we were down in the open air market. Now it's smack dab middle of Charleston, very busy street, you know, especially in the middle of summer, like there's tons of people. And so we were at the open air market. Now this is also during a time when it was very common to just see Civil War reenactors everywhere, like street performers. Nowadays, like people don't do that as much because they're like, this is maybe a little offensive.
Nerd.
Also,
well, yeah, maybe the racial connotations of that are, you know, not so great to be dressed as a Confederate. Yeah.
Well, and that, like, it used to be like, oh, you know, here's a Confederate person, here's a Union person, like, take a picture, you know, like, street performer, essentially. And, you know, they have, like, a lot of horses downtown, too. Like, they have the carriage rides, and, which, by the way, they do take care of their horses, usually. Like, when I go to a town, I suss out, like, how well are they taking care of their horses? I'm like, yeah, the Charleston people, they seem to be taking pretty good care of their horses. But, so we were walking down to this open air market, mind you, middle of the day, packed, broad daylight. And so I'm a horse girl. I've always been a horse girl. And we are walking down to the market, and I see what looks like a Confederate soldier on a horse. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, there's a horse. And I turn around, and I was with, I think, my grandma and my mom. And I was like, I grabbed my mom's arm and I said, Mom, look, there's a horse. I was like, it wasn't even just like, hey, I'm excited. I was like, there's a horse over there. There's a soldier on a horse. And I like turned to point, and he was just gone. Oh. And my mom was like, and I was like, well, he was there.
Your mom was like regretting her decision to have children at that point.
He was. But then we went on a ghost tour later that night. Because again, always about dead people.
Yeah, of course.
And I told it to the guy, and he, like, the guy, and he just kind of, like, wrote me off. He was like, okay, yeah.
Okay, child.
Yeah. Which, it's like, I don't know. There's a chance you, like, sometimes you get really good ghost tours in places, and sometimes they're just really bad. Or it's like, sometimes it kind of ruins the fun when you've already been on, like, a ghost tour down there, because it's like, they don't really have any new knowledge, and then you're just like, oh, you know.
Yeah, well, and I feel like you said, sometimes they're very good, but sometimes you can tell the person has no interest in actually, like, talking about the paranormal. It's just that they went to school to be an actor, and this is, like, the only gig they could get was ghost stories in colonial garb, and that's just, like, their life now.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Or, like, I mean, not even in colonial garb, but just people that are, like, it's usually people that went to, like, theater.
Theater kids with nowhere else to turn to.
Yeah, and they're like, this is my fucking, like, night gig that I have to come out and do once a day and give this spiel. And it's like, and, like, obviously my family's always been interested in the paranormal, so we have, like, stories, and, like, sometimes we'd have more information than, like, the tour guide.
Yeah.
And so then, like, sometimes my mom would just, like, start giving the tour, basically, and then that would just piss the tour guide off.
Yeah, I could see that being something that the tour guide would be like, oh.
But also, like, if you're going to give a shitty tour and someone is going to come in and make it better, then...
I'm sure that other people on the tour appreciated that, but, like, he was probably like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Or it's, like, tour guides that don't wait to let you take pictures and stuff. They're just like, let's go. And it's like, no, I want to see if I can get a ghost on camera.
Yeah. That's what we're here for, is the ghosties.
Yeah, we're not here for you. We're not here for your fucking terrible performance. There's a reason you're not on Broadway, dude.
There's a reason you're wearing fucking old-timey garb and doing walking tours of whatever bullshit tourist town I'm in. I went on the one in Alexandria, Virginia. I used to live over there twice. And one time I got a very good person that you could tell. They didn't dress up in the outfit, but you could tell they were very into ghost stories and the paranormal and actually, like, sussing out the evidence. And then I went one other time when my mother-in-law came to town, because she also is, like, very into the ghost hunter stuff. And that person, you could tell, was very much the dejected theater kid. And they were, like, dressed in the colonial garb. And they're just like...
So this is where they saw a specter of a man. Next stop.
In that window, sometimes there's a ghost. And then they had to, like, talk in, like, old-timey... what is it, vernacular.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could tell that they just were like so pissed that was what they were doing with their life.
See, I don't need that. I want the people that are just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't need the dressed up. And I understand some people are just there because they don't actually want to be scared. But like, I want to be scared.
Mm-hmm. I want to hear the tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like, sometimes it's like when you go to haunted locations, because we used to like stay at haunted locations or visit haunted locations a lot. It's just like a part of like our tourism as, you know, a family.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's kind of fucked up, right? Like,
see, and this is what makes me think that it's not the houses your family's in. It's that there's like either spirits that have attached themselves to your family,
or we're just like mediums.
Yeah, or
and we just ignore it.
The ghosties know that like y'all are putting out the vibes to come hang out, and that's what I think it is probably.
Yeah. Well, I do think that at my parents' 2 previous houses, there was some bad, because there was bad shit. But I think there's a lot of places where there's bad shit going on. And it's like, I can usually tell when it's like going to your parents' house, it's like, yeah, there might be a ghost here, but it doesn't feel like it's bad vibes. Yeah. Maybe in the basement, but also basements are just bad vibes.
Yeah, I think the basement's just like in general creepy, and so I can't like look at that red door without thinking someone's gonna pop out with a hatchet and just murder me.
Yeah. Also, red is such an interesting choice.
A very ominous color, right? Yeah. There's like nothing else in that basement is painted but that red door.
Amy has not. She needs to go down there and paint it.
She's afraid of going down there too. That's why they built an addition onto the house, because she's like, I will not go down there to do my laundry any fucking more. So they built an addition on the house, so now her laundry room is upstairs, and she has no reason to go in the basement anymore.
Well, and honestly, it might be a case where like that specific part of the foundation was original to like a cabin or something that was there, and like bad shit might have happened in the cabin.
True,
so,
very true.
Because that happens a lot where like someone will build a cabin and then they'll just keep adding on to make it a house, or they'll have. Like at my parents' property, there's like, you can see old foundations where they pulled up the foundation, but the ground still like carries the mark of it. So like when it dries out, there's a big fucking rectangle.
And like thinking about it, the location of where that little cellar is in their house. So if you were to come above ground and then just like a couple feet over is where the summer kitchen used to be. So like you can still see like the foundation, or well, I don't know I think they must have taken up the concrete for that like in the last 5 years or so, but where the summer kitchen used to be. So I think at one point that's where the original house used to sit, was closer to where that door is now.
Or it's just like the detached summer kitchen. Yeah. Because I think my parents, there you can see where the summer kitchen used to be, and then there's like other foundations that are just fucking around. But yeah. I was like, oh, is that the outhouse? My dad's like, no, it's probably the summer kitchen. I'm like, I wouldn't fucking doubt if the outhouse was that close to the house and the people were just like shady as hell.
Yeah. But, old-timey people, man.
Yeah, just fucking around, doing stupid shit. God knows why.
That's the truth.
All right, we want to do tarot?
Yeah, let's do tarot time.
Okay, so for our first card, we have the 6 of Cups reversed. So 6 of Cups reversed, that is like naivety, like childish, but not in a good way. And then for our next card, we have the Star, which this is like renewal. This is like hope. So there might be a period where you're being kind of childish, or acting childish, and then you just need to like step back, take a minute, because then you're going to go into a period where you're going to have to be prepared for a fight. You know, like 8 of Wands, not like a more of an emotional like verbal fight, not like a full out.
Sure.
Like maybe
not like you're
going to
beat someone up.
Yeah. More of like, I am displeased with this. This can also be like productivity and change. We have the 5 of Cups, which is like despair. Like he's crying over his spilled milk. He's upset. 2 of Swords. This is like kind of like you can't really change the situation, but you need to compromise in this situation. And then we have Magician reverse. That's like lack of planning, lack of preparedness. Like you don't have everything you need together. So overall, you're just going to be kind of childish this week. You need to try to get your shit together. You need to compromise. You're going to be upset, but let me see. Yeah, I think you're going to rise above kind of what's happening this week, and it'll end up being fine. That was Judgment. But yeah, that's the tarot reading.
All right, sweet. Well, on that note, I think we're going to end it here. We're going to go get lunch. And like I said earlier, we will have some additional content for you guys. Maybe a little vlog, maybe some just Instagram clips. Yeah. We'll see, whatever the wind takes us today. And yeah.
Play it by ear.
Yeah, and remember, fuck Bill Cosby, fuck Brittany, fuck Gabby Hanna, fuck James Charles, fuck the prosecutors and the judge in Brittany's case, and the Spears family.
And I hope I hope that all of them get this message, but I really hope that Gabby Hanna gets it, because I feel like she stalks.
She would be the most likely of all of the above to see me. Can you imagine the absolute publicity? Gabby Hanna, bring it, girl. Fuck you.
Get into a fight with us.
I could use the exposure, so if you want to get into a fight with me and post a 30-minute long video about how I victimized you and just send the traffic our way, I have no problem using you in that capacity, because I think you're a shitty person, so...
Also, using the ADHD as an excuse.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can be low-functioning ADHD, but that doesn't mean you gotta be a bitch.
Like, when she said, I do all these shitty things because I have ADHD, I'm like, wait, does ADHD make you be shitty, or does it just make it harder for you to, like, focus on your daily tasks? And I don't feel like having ADHD... It makes you impulsive. Okay, well, I guess that would kind of explain it, but at the not same time, a narcissist. Yeah, I think her big problem is that she's just a huge-ass narcissist.
I think, like, on the worst spectrum of things, people who have, like, very, very severe ADHD, where they're being, like, they cannot control their impulses, you know, it's a lot of, like, impulse spending, or, like, jumping up, interrupting people. Yeah. Interrupting people, I think, is a big one. So it's, like, you're not necessarily... a raging cunt, you're just annoying at worst, which can be hard to hold down a job and stuff, but like that's why you need like counseling, I guess, for a lot of people, unless you can, you know, do it yourself, and medication sometimes. So, and like productivity is another one that's a huge issue. It's like you just get stressed out and you don't want to do things. So,
and then you end up on a 3-hour TikTok K-hole because you just can't, like,
that's what's bringing you joy.
I know, right?
Can't fathom the idea of packing
or like doing your adult tasks, because it's just too overwhelming. So, which is exactly the reason why I procrastinated packing for this literally 3-night trip I took back to my home state. And now I have a suitcase that weighs about as much as I do, because I got to a point on Friday where I'm just like, I don't know what to pack, so I'm just going to put everything in here so that I just have everything. Options. So, oops.
Not sorry.
Not sorry. All right, team. You know the drill. Check us out on our socials. We got Instagram. We got TikTok, Facebook, yada, yada. Link in the description. Links in the bios. You're smart. You'll figure it out. And we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.